Hello, my name is Neil Binderman and I'm Executive Director of the Primary Care and Community Neurology Society and the Community Therapist Network. As part of our Therapy Connect series, I had the great pleasure of meeting and talking with Anne Basting the other day, the author of a new book called Creative Care. I first learned of Anne's work via listening to her TED Talk. I was so moved and intrigued that I went about searching for her email address and to get in touch. Anne Basting is a scholar and artist whose work focuses on the potential for the arts and humanities to transform our lives as individuals and communities. For over 20 years, Anne has searched ways to infuse the arts into care settings with a particular focus on people with cognitive disabilities like dementia. She is author of numerous articles and 4 books. In Creative Care, Anne lays the groundwork for a widespread transformation in our approach to elder care and uses compelling, touching stories to inspire and guide us all, family, friends, and health professionals, in how to connect and interact with those living with dementia. I started our conversation by asking Anne what was her inspiration behind writing her latest book.
Well, as you said, I've written several books on aging and the role of the arts and creativity and trying to, I think, shift the narrative around loss that is so prevalent with aging and dementia, which certainly is there, but it overpowers the situation so much that you just watch people's lives sort of diminish because of the narrative, when there's so much more opportunity for growth and connection and learning that could offset that. So it's almost, the word iatrogenic, which is like the condition of the negative care actually creates a worse condition. We for the people experiencing the disease or the aging experience or the natural losses that people incur in aging. Mm-hmm. And the nonprofit that I founded, Time Slips, has been doing training. But I really saw this book, the Creative Care book, as an opportunity to kind of lay down some of the core principles of that work in rather than an academic press, in a trade press that was really told through stories, to get it out as broadly as possible. The work itself is very experiential and emotional, so it really kind of lends itself to that kind of storytelling. And that was really my hope with this book. I also happened to have kind of a shift in that my own mother was diagnosed with dementia. And so it created a new challenge for me as a way to live what I was teaching and writing about, as well as, and sort of process it at the same time, rather than with that scholarly remove. It was very fresh and present in my life.
I was saying this to somebody just this morning about your book. If there was ever an argument for the author reading their own book on Audible, your book is it. Because it's partly linked to what you've just said. The passion that clearly you have comes out from the way you read it, the way you describe the stories, the way you describe the experiences. You can't get that extra dimension unless you've done it and been there, and that was clear from just listening to you, talking through the words. It's magical, honestly, it really is. And one of the things that I loved about it was the concept of beautiful questions. That I just wondered, out of the various beautiful questions, do you have a favorite?
You know, I think my favorite changes depending on the moment. Um, and I'll tell you that the publisher, some of the folks at the publishing company suggested we change the name to Beautiful Questions because it's such a provocative concept. And I'm thinking of that being the next book, actually. Um, I think now with isolation, I love a couple of questions because everyone's kind of locked into their environment a
Yes,
bit.
yes.
And this question of if you could fly anywhere right now, just kind of lift your arms and go, where would you go? Um, we really use that question a lot in the Peter Pan project as well, with people who have a lot of physical disabilities and limitations. So it's very powerful for that situation as well as when we're kind of all on lockdown and can't go anywhere.
Yes.
The other one I love is what is the most beautiful sound you can imagine? Um, and I usually, with people with dementia in particular, I try to avoid the most questions because you're asking them to compare things, which is an
Yes.
added cognitive step. But it's that question seems to work in that way. And people answer the most beautiful things to that question. And it also sort of because sound and music is so deeply encoded in the brain, uh, almost to be the last thing that dementia can really touch. It's very powerful to talk about those sounds and then to invite people to make them, because that's the playful part then.
Yes. You said something which has sparked me to think of, there's a book which you may have read, How Emotions Are Made. Have you?
No, I haven't read that yet. I'll look for
Ah,
it.
it's by Lisa Feldman Barrett, who is an American professor as well. It is fascinating, and it links very nicely to your work, um, especially around the science that she is uncovering around the fact that our brains work on the basis of prediction,
Hmm.
that we are predicting from not only just day one, but before day one, based on experiences that we have. And the one thing that you mention as well in the book, which is something that struck before I read your book, which struck me in relation to what Lisa says, is with people with dementia, one of the things you clearly see is this sense of frustration and difficult behaviors as well. But the frustration, and it just dawned on me, if you are if your brain is working on the basis of prediction and you start to lose that ability to predict what is going to happen going forward, that's going to just build that sense of frustration for you. So there's a bit of science or neuroscience underlying why we're seeing that frustration. And it would be the book, I'm sure it will probably lead to a number of questions that you might want to go ahead and look at answering in certain ways or exploring. But the frustrations, have you found a way through almost the techniques that you use to help address some of those frustrations that you see? Because so many people, I think, in the care world um, don't quite understand sometimes that sense of frustration that somebody has, and doesn't quite get the difficult behaviors that some of these people will display. because they don't get to the bottom of the frustration aspect. And I wondered if you had any techniques that you've used that go into that.
The frustration that and the anxiety that I really have seen comes from almost more, and I come with a PhD in theater, and which is really sort of an overlay almost of sociology and anthropology of the performance of everyday life. I think what I see is almost a rupture in role theory, which is a person no longer understands what role they're supposed to play. There's an embedded, almost subconscious memory of different roles that one has played in one's life, and that are avenues for meaningful expression of who you are. And in a care situation, many of our care situations, the older adults are placed in a passive role with no avenue, no meaningful role for expression of identity. No invitation to impact their surroundings. And so they're entertained or passive, receiving care in a situation that also the other rupture is, where am I? I don't recognize the surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
There's some conceptual breaches there, but also the environment might look different than the environment that they assume they should be in at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so those two things of sort of, what do I do with myself, and becoming accustomed to a passivity or encouraged into a passivity, can be very frustrating, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think that's one of the reasons why creativity can be so powerful as an intervention, right? In that you're inviting the person into expression, you're telling them that it's meaningful, that you're taking seriously what they're doing. It's not.
That's all right.
Sorry. I'm not sure. That's my son trying to FaceTime. There. So what's happening is that there's this disjuncture between where they understand themselves to be in the physical location, and then also the role that they're being asked to play. And when you don't have an understanding of those two things, it can create tremendous anxiety and frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Creativity, when you use it as an intervention, creates a meaningful role and an avenue for self-expression and self-articulation. And with flow theory, that you get into this flow of creative expression, you're no longer paying attention to the discrepancy of the environment. You have an articulated role. Mm-hmm. And people say, I understand what I'm doing here because I'm being given something productive and meaningful to do. That impacts my community. That, in the work that we do with time slips, we always link meaningful engagement to the subjective part, where it's meaningful, it builds on something in that person, that the expression of that person. And it also has an objective component, which links the person to their larger community. So you're always understanding who you are in relationship to the larger world, or in relationship to the community. It's creativity and purpose simultaneously.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, really interesting. So I asked you about the beautiful questions. I wondered, I think I might know the answer to this, but I'm not sure. What is probably your favorite of the work you describe in the book? What's your favorite beautiful moment that you've written about?
There's There's too many. I think there's all of it's really the whole book is a string of moments that were so beautiful that I wanted
Yeah,
to write a book that contained them all.
yeah, yeah.
You know, the work with Bill, I did a whole chapter on working with him, who a gentleman who had just tremendous challenges in communicating, and it you could feel it, in all the situations in these stories, you feel the person coming out, a person who's been so isolated by either physical constraints or cognitive constraints or societal constraints, and that the presence of, I mean, it's me, but then I also write about other people, witnessing other people doing this work, because everyone has the capacity to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Inviting another person into expression and then really being a powerful witness to that expression, and the role of some of the artists where they then take that expression and build on it, and then help share it with the larger world. um, I did a whole TED talk on the moment with Jim,
Yeah, yeah,
where I ask him, how does water move? And I didn't, the thing is, you don't know what's going to come out. And the fact that he took driftwood and then just started moving it as though it was floating on the water, it's these little micro moments in
yeah.
kitchens or in someone's living room end up being the most powerful artistic experiences of your life. And you feel like I would have paid $100 for a ticket to this performance, but
Yeah,
I'm the only one there, and it's just such a beautiful experience and moment.
I put down in my notes here that your encounter with Jim, that from the TED talk, I thought it was a lovely encounter. It was yeah, it was lovely. But it for me, and it's also clear from that TED talk and throughout the book that you are an incredibly observant person, and especially when it comes to ensuring you make the connection with people. And that, in a way, for me, is an art in itself. It's almost as if you've taken your experiences, perhaps that you encountered maybe as a child, and you've related it then to the people you're connecting with. I'm fascinated just to learn, what led you to be like that, and whether your childhood had something to do with that as well.
I got those questions so often, and it's hard sometimes to go back. But that was another reason for doing the book, was to kind of go back and think about what were those early experiences, that might have led to this. And I think um, I think if there's kind of a general, and I share some of those stories in the first part of the book, um, if there is a general thing, I think for kids, for young kids who are, for whatever reason, more solitary, um, maybe get along with older people older than them rather than kids their own age,
Hmm.
for whatever reason. Some kids it happens because they have they have a sickness, they're ill, they have, they're battling something like that. That wasn't my situation. It was more social, where you know kids get in weird peer pressure situations, and I found myself kind of isolated for much of what we call middle school, which is
Hmm.
really the terrible part of school as far as I'm concerned. um, 12, 13 years old, 11, 12, 13 years old. Um, and I think I just spent a lot of time by myself,
Hmm. Hmm.
and with imagination and with art. And that my mother, which I find so kind of ironic in the full circle of our journey together,
Yeah.
really encouraged me in that direction. and now I find myself, having built those tools, trying to come back and encourage her using those tools as well.
Yeah.
I think,
sorry, go on.
no, I was going to say, I think your observation of turning human relationships into art is really an astute one, and that one of the programs I write about in a book called Student Artist in Residence program, where we have college graduate and undergraduate students living in care communities for a year, getting room and board to help in exchange for sort of building community through the arts.
Yes.
And one of my students in that, Angela Swan, said she was doing her MFA thesis, and she was asked to describe her medium. You know, what medium do you use as an artist? And she said, relationships.
Wow.
And I said, that's right. That's exactly it. That's your canvas.
And that links to a certain degree with the next kind of related question, which is to do with almost the art of medicine. And what I'm wondering is, do you think we can teach the skill set that we've just talked about in terms of being observant of other people? Because I think it needs to be a skill set that's part of medical school training. You obviously, you get the students going into medical school are extremely bright, but I don't wish to be offensive, but I think some of them lack the communication skills that are absolutely necessary when you're dealing with patients, and the sort of skills that you describe and what you clearly got would make a massive difference to the interaction between the medical professional and the patient. And it's part of the art of medicine. It links into this concept of narrative medicine as well. And I wondered what your thoughts were. How can we get more of this into the university's teaching?
Well, first I'll say, yes, it can be taught. And I've been very heartened by some medical humanities programs in particular that have implemented the time slips training as part of their programs and their coursework, and that there's actually published data on those courses now.
Okay. Great.
That talk about, I think, increase of understanding, increase of capacity of communication, increase of the recognition of the fact that all behavior is communication, increased observation skills, things like that. So I'm very heartened by that.
Mm-hmm.
But the real trick to me is like, to me, that's pretty simple. I think human beings want ways to connect with each other, want to learn that skill set, and it's quite possible and powerful. But it won't survive unless the system creates incentive for it and space for it and reward for it. And I'm heartened in places that have national health systems that the increasing dissolution of the barriers between meaningful culture making and expression and health through social prescribing.
Yes.
It's happening quite a bit in the UK and in Canada and in Australia, and places that understand the value of prevention, that are rewarded for prevention. The American healthcare system is crisis oriented and treatment oriented, rather like that's where the reward is financially. And so it's extra challenging for us to find a way and a place for it to thrive. But I'm sure that creating time and space for the exercise of those skill sets
Mm-hmm.
is equally as important as figuring out how to embed it in the training.
Yes. I was encouraged when I was in the States last year for an event, and it was the first time I'd ever heard of it. But in America, there is an association now for narrative medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that was marvelous just to hear that, because I think it's so important that we give people the time to be able to talk, because you use an expression towards the end of your book, which I'm going to just read. I'm going to read these words out because they are, for me, a real highlight, and they mean quite a lot, because then there's a phrase that you've used, which clearly grammatically it may be incorrect, but how you used it was magnificent in my own view. So it says, everyone has stories inside them. Everyone has some kind of tool for expressing those stories. Everyone has barriers keeping their stories from coming out, some more than others. It is up to us to figure out how to invite the story out and how to listen it into existence. That's the crux of it at the end. How to listen it into existence, because we have a campaign over here at the moment, which is about, it was actually established and promoted by 2TV people, and it's time to talk, and it's in connection with mental health, that we need to have time to talk. And I'm of the view that it should be time to listen, because if you have time to as a professional or as another person, if you have time to listen, the other person's going to talk. They don't, and it was that. So it was that expression that you said at the end, and how you do it through the book. You describe ways in which you just allow that opportunity by listening for it to come out. Do you have a particular highlight in that, in the work that you did, where you saw something beautiful come out of just listening to somebody?
I think it's the story of Dorothy, who only had sounds left.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that. We would ask in the story shaping exercises, you can do it in response to any prompt, but we were using an image at the time, and Dorothy, what do you want to name this person? And we'll shape a story. And she's only had ba 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 left.
Yes. Yes.
And so we would repeat it so carefully, trying to get the number of bas and the emotional intention behind it. And so as we did the story exercise in the group, every time she would answer, we would repeat very earnestly the ba 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 ba. And one story session, we said, what would you like to name this character? And she said, ba 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 ba, Dorothy, ba 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 ba. And
yes.
And everyone just fell over. That she was inserting language inside the sounds again. And then we repeated it. And then she grabbed my hands and said, ba ba ba, I love you, ba 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 ba, as a gift. you can look at these exchanges of listening and story and expression as really expressions of love and gifts back and forth. I'm giving you space and time and my echoing and comprehension of what you're saying. You're giving me your expression, and this exchange back and forth is the gift of creativity and generosity, back and forth and back and forth. I was smiling earlier because in this moment of COVID, we created a telestories project through Time Slips. In Milwaukee, where I live, we got a grant to hire 10 artists to do 30-minute phone story exchanges by telephone with older adults who are isolated, which is everyone.
Yes.
And so each artist is talking with 10 elders. So they're reaching 100. It's a drop in the bucket. But we did a loneliness scale survey pre and post. And we did it for both the artists and the elders because everyone needs this. And then we're gathering responses about the process from both parties. And it is such a profound impact for people's mental health from both sides of the exchange. And the stories are just beautiful. The artist slowly over the 12 sessions is helping the older adult kind of shape the stories into something. Whatever the stories kind of want to be and whatever the expertise of both parties is. I mean, we're getting everything from, coloring books to cookbooks to, dance and movement. And it's just fascinating.
Brilliant.
I was just before I got on the Zoom with you, I was grading my students' reflections who are also doing telestories. And it's profound, the stories that they're sharing.
When you're saying this is stories that are being done over the Zoom with other people, or
just telephone.
Telephone. Wow.
Yeah, telephone, telestories. Yeah, like telling stories, but telephone. And because not everyone has access to Zoom.
No, absolutely right. Yes. And so is this a trained, so I understand, is this a trained professional who is speaking with somebody in the care home to talk through stories, or is it the relative?
Our training for telestories has been to train the volunteers who are there. I don't know about in the UK, but we have mobilized so many volunteers to reach the elders who used to be coming out to senior centers but can't because they're all shut down.
Yes.
And now they're getting well checks, just like a phone call a day. Are you okay? Do you need food? Do you, the basics of health and well-being. And we're training them to use beautiful questions to open story.
Okay.
And so my undergraduate creative writing students, I taught them to use this for service learning, and they're doing it as part of their schoolwork. They're having an exchange with an older adult, and then the artists we also train. So we're trying to do it. Inserting it into meal delivery, into well checks by telephone. And then we've also been offering Zoom creative sessions as well. And those are all on the Time Slips website. Lots of adjustments we've made to COVID.
And these are people who are living at home, and the students are making contact with these people that are living at home. I suppose I'm just relating it to my own sort of similar a situation living here in the UK. We've got some elderly friends. I don't know about, so it's that sort of thing where you're phoning up your elderly friends and you're just talking through with them. That would they have dementia, or it wouldn't matter whether it's dementia or not?
We train people for dementia in case, because the other thing is the isolation hastening people's symptoms.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Whether they're in care homes or not,
Yes.
the isolation really is exacerbating.
Because they're not using
creativity.
their brains. They're not using everything, that they've got.
Well, that and lack of human contact has been shown in studies of solitary confinement, has been shown to have dementia-like symptoms. So,
yes.
You might be the isolation, it might be the brain condition. It's hard to tell.
Yes.
So, so we prepare them for that in a way, in a way that we say, here's what dementia is and how it might manifest. Here's how not to be stopped by it.
Yes. Yes.
You don't stop there. You don't go, oh my gosh, someone just repeated themselves the same story twice. What do I do? You just walk right around it and go back and connect. Yes. So that's what we're training people to do. So either it's there or it's not there, but either way, you can foster the connection through creativity.
Well, and you prompted me. I'm going to pick up the phone this evening after it's now over here. It's 10:10. I'm going to pick up the phone. I have a lovely elderly gentleman friend who lives in the town where I live, and he is 97 this year, I think. Wow. He's either 96 or 97. I'm trying to remember because we celebrated his 95th birthday, and I think that might have been, gosh, now I'm having problems remembering. But he's a drummer. He's a drummer in a band that I used to play with, a big band, and that the drumming he's brilliant. You see him walking down the street, and honestly, it looks as if he's 70, not 90. And so I'm going to pick up the phone to him this evening and just say hello to him because I haven't spoken to him for a few weeks. So, and I'm going to tell him, I'll describe this interview, this discussion with him as well. But I just want to say thank you. That I have absolutely loved this chatting to you, and it would be lovely to do another one at some point. It may be some other questions that might come to mind, or there may be another subject. And if you're open for another chat at some point, I would love to do that. But,
I'd love it. I feel like there's a really rich moment of creativity happening now that's sort of after the book. So, and one of the things is that the publisher is bringing out what we called an imagination kit, so right. that it'll be a companion piece that has beautiful questions in it and image prompts and a little journal.
Oh, fantastic.
I know, it's going to be just delightful. I'm lamenting that it's not available now, because now is when people need it the most, but I think the need will still be there. So there'll be lots of stories of implementing that, and just continued, how can we bring this to more people and improve our lives as we complete them.
Yeah, and that begs the question: have you got another book being planned at all?
I'm really just starting essays about the work that in the same way that creative care was kind of essays about the work that I've done. Mm-hmm. Current projects, and it feels to me like it might be centering on beautiful questions. That's a kind of a unifying factor, and people using it beyond aging into working with children and working to resolve conflict. There's a lot of different ways and ramifications of that as a communication tool.
Yeah, sorry, I just remembered now. You said that there was going to be another book on beautiful questions. Yeah. Completely forgot that, but no, that'll be great. I'll look forward to reading that. Is that likely to be out? Do you think you'll get something for next year? Do you think you'll have to?
I don't know. The next big thing I'm working on is actually a creative project. So we'll see we'll see. I'm trying to do a project called Enchanted, which walks people through enchanting household objects. This is my dream of it, I'm not sure. And then gathering those stories and collaborating with micro commissions for artists who are out of work right now to turn those stories into micro operas or a symphony or a
Wow.
story, different mechanisms that people who are isolated can really enchant their own environment and then feel it reflected more broadly through
Brilliant.
those partnerships and micro commissions.
Well, that sounds fantastic. A great thing to be planning.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Anne. That's been an absolute pleasure. Been absolutely delighted to speak with you.
Thanks so much. It's a treat to share the work.